Hello there. How's it going, everyone? My name is Vishal Vibhakar, and I'm from Front. And today we have a very special webinar for you titled How Inefficient Email Practices Are Slowing Down Your Supply Chain. We're just about to get started. I'm going to wait about a minute or so for people to join in, but just wanted to say I'm really excited about today's webinar. I have a brand new slide deck, which I'm actually really excited about. Really just thrilled to be talking about this topic. But as we wait for people to join in, for those of you that are already logged in, let me know if you're having any issues with my sound. I would also love to hear where you're coming from, what part of the country, what part of the world you're here joining us from. And also, as mentioned in the email on the webinar landing page, we're going to have a live Q&A at the end. So feel free to pop your questions in at any moment. We'll be sure to have some time at the end to go through those questions. So thanks again, everyone, for joining. And like I said, we'll wait about just 30 seconds to another minute or so for folks to sign in here and join us. Cool, looks like we got a lot of people here. I recognize some of these names, some of our customers, some of our friends. Super thrilled to have you join us. Give it a few more seconds and we'll get just about started. Cool, let's do this. Let's start. I got some feedback. The sound sounds great. So let me know if that changes at any moment, but glad to know that you can hear me. Great, so let's get this started. Like I said, we're gonna today talk about how inefficient email practices are slowing down your supply chain. And we'll also cover some solutions on how to really combat this. What actionable items you can take away and implement right away to your team to help combat this issue that we're seeing with a lot of logistics and supply chain companies. So let's get this started. So today's speaker is myself. My name is Vishal Vibhakar. I'm a product expert here at Front. Front is an email management platform for logistics companies. We're based in San Francisco, California. We've been around for about 5 years. We have offices in Paris, San Francisco, and Arizona. And we work with a lot of logistics and supply chain teams across the globe, actually, helping them optimize their email workflows and processes so that they are able to automate tasks, become more data-driven, and respond faster to customers, among a lot of other things that we'll cover in just a bit. So the agenda for today. So starting off, we'll really talk about why traditional email practices are slowing down your business. Just kind of getting to the crux of the problem that we see that a lot of our logistics and supply chain companies and partners that we work with have been facing, and really what the root cause of that is. Then we'll go into how to effectively manage high volume email and distribution lists. And so there's some solutions that we have that we know has worked well for other folks. And I'll cover those step by step. And then we'll go into email analytics. And I think this is probably the most powerful takeaway that you're going to get from this webinar, really how to become more data driven, how to measure things like response time so that you could get back to your customers faster, make sure that emails aren't falling through the cracks and things like that. And then, like I mentioned, at the end, we'll have a live Q&A. So feel free to ask your questions at any point throughout the webinar. And like I said, at the end of this, we'll make some time to go through those questions. You could also just email me if you'd like to do that and prefer a written response instead. My email is vishal@frontapp.com. I probably just sent you an email, so you probably have that right in your inbox. So what's Front? Front is the inbox built for teams. And so at Front, what we've seen over the past 20 years is that everything has changed in business. We started with just email. Then we added our communication tools to that workflow and our teams surrounding it. And then as you can see today, we have a whole plethora of tools, of apps, and really email still kind of lives in the center of that, between our teams, between our apps, between our other communication tools. The interesting thing is that over the last 20 years, as we mentioned, everything in business has changed, yet the email hasn't. If you look at your inbox 20 years ago, and if you look at your inbox today, it's pretty much the same. A lot of folks I know in the logistics and supply chain industry are using Outlook, for example, and Outlook hasn't really made a ton of changes in the last 20 years. Yet the way we do business has changed. As I mentioned, we're using more communication tools. We're actually getting more email than we've ever had before. Yet the tools that we use aren't able to handle the high volume email and handle the changes that we are seeing in business. And we're reaching a breaking point. Information is duplicated everywhere. Inboxes are opaque silos, and people are feeling overwhelmed. This is particularly the case if you're working on distribution lists. So if you're using contact or support or logistics and you have multiple people on the same distribution list, you're getting information duplicated everywhere, and you're not maybe realizing if an email has been responded to. And emails, therefore, are sometimes falling through the cracks. So does this look familiar? Are you having an overwhelmed inbox, 13,000 messages? I think the average person today is receiving close to 500 emails in a given day, which is absurd. But there's really not a great solution right now out there to help manage this and make sure that emails are getting triaged, the right person is taking care of the right client, and you have visibility across teams and individuals, so you know that things are being taken care of. So email, as I mentioned, is the cornerstone of your work. Despite what anyone says, email is dead. That's a common sort of theme that we hear every year. A new tool is coming out to kill email. Email is not dead. Email is not going away. There are tools out there such as Slack and Microsoft Teams that are fostering more internal discussion, which we here at Front think is great. But when you're thinking about communication, when you're thinking about making sure that you can get your message across multiple people, that it's living, breathing, email is still the source of truth. But as I mentioned, it's inflexible, it's bloated, and it's slowing you down. And so you've probably hacked together ways of working together, right? You have distribution lists, you have shared mailboxes, potentially in Outlook. You're using CCs, BCCs, forwards. You have a ton of different apps now, Teams, Slack, Salesforce, Jira, and you're sending emails about your emails. This is something that happens pretty often. You're asking people, hey, have you read my last email? And you're asking them by sending them an email. And it's becoming a bottleneck for your growth. So this is for a lot of teams that we're dealing with, a lot of the companies and customers that we work with, email and communication in general is preventing them from being able to scale. And these inefficiencies at the end of the day are impacting your bottom line, right? You're getting duplicated work and errors. I mentioned email slipping through the cracks, but sometimes you're double replying. You and another teammate are replying to the same prospect or customer and sometimes giving different information. And this is causing confusion, causing stress, and really shedding a negative light on your company. And missed messages and missed opportunities. You're getting fragmented customer conversations, and there's no accountability or visibility into what's happening. And we'll go deeper into how tools like Front and some of the other solutions I'm going to talk about really help this. And I think it's hard to really understand once you see it. And so your email problem is something that you can't afford to ignore, right? It's not just stress that it's causing on your teams. It's not just the poor customer experience that you might be delivering to your prospects or your customers, but there's real impact on your bottom line, right? So 13 hours are spent per person each week on email, and which means 28% of the work week is email. And this is kind of maybe what a typical person's workflow looks like, right? Bunch of emails, right? I think if you look at this one right in the center, the RE, right? Like, do you have those really long threads with multiple like REs for reply or FWDs for forwards? And these chains are getting so long that you don't even really know what's going on, and you don't understand what this conversation is about. You're probably maybe the 100th person that just got CC'd on an email chain, and it's really ineffective, inefficient, and causing your team headache, and more importantly, losing them time. And like I mentioned, you might have a ton of email workarounds, but like I said, they're becoming bottlenecks for your business, right? Personal inboxes give your business multiple points of failure. Critical conversations stop, important information gets trapped, and there's no way to track every message from start to finish. What happens if somebody's out of office or an employee leaves? Every individual is a possible bottleneck, right? And so we'll go deeper into this, but when you're having teammates on vacation or their shift has ended, right? But your customer is still online. What happens then, right? Do you have a process in place so that another team member gets that message and then can tend to your customer? What if you have offices across the globe or across the country, and you have business hours at specific local times, right? What if you have customers in a different time period, right? How are they being taken care of? These are some of the things that we're going to dig deeper into. Now, some logistics and supply chain teams that I speak with, that we work with here at Front, are using shared mailboxes in Outlook, yet they're not a single source of truth. It's difficult to quickly triage emails and assign them to the right person. If one person deletes a message, it's gone forever. I know this is a huge headache for a lot of the teams that we work with, and there's no insight into what's happening in each person's inbox. And if you're using distribution lists or Google groups, like I mentioned, logistics app, support app, they're lacking visibility and they leave you open to errors, right? You're getting, we were at a few conferences last month, a few logistics and supply chain conferences, Freight Waves. We were at Edge a couple of months before that, some of the TIA conferences. And it's really great when you're there in person and you get to chat and talk about these problems, because it's so funny how often some of the people that we're meeting just pulled up their phone, showed us their inbox, showed us the distribution list that they're a part of, and literally the hundreds, if not thousands, of emails that day that they were receiving. And one person in particular I remember, he had a really clever methodology for going through the email and quickly sorting it, but he trained his mind really well to be able to go through that email. And no person is immune to mistakes, and I'm sure he's missed messages countless times, and he had even admitted it, although he looked pretty adept at going through his inbox and identifying what was important and what wasn't. But you shouldn't have to deal with this. You shouldn't have to train your mind so well to be this filter for your inbox. You need to leave that up to automation. You need to leave that up to tools, because you're going to have new team members, and they're not going to be able to get up to speed or know your business as well as you do, and to be able to identify what's right and timely and what's important. So earlier this year, our team at Front, we conducted a logistics survey where we surveyed a couple of hundred people in managerial levels in the logistics and supply chain industry, managerial or above. So typically director, VP, a lot of founders and CEOs running their own operations. And this is some of the data that we were able to collect, right? So what was the biggest communication challenge facing logistics and supply chain companies today? Number one, keeping up with customer service 24/7, trouble keeping up. And then number two, and not too far off, was high volume email, dropping the ball on emails. And then number three, scaling to meet demand. And then just a little, you'll see a step lower there with accountability and not knowing who owns what. But at the end of the day, customer service is still, just like any other industry, still the number one priority. Yet high volume email and being able to manage that is the number one challenge. And so we're trying to fuse these two and really help you think about what are the right solutions to manage high volume email so that you can keep up with your customer service, not just when your team, your local team is at the office, but really 24/7. And then going to some of the most important focus areas for logistics and supply chain companies. So again, this is from the survey that we conducted earlier this year. Number one, customer service. Number two, technology. And number three, operational efficiency. And these are all basically even. But really, I think what we've noticed is obviously customer service is such an important area, like I said, not just for logistics and supply chain businesses, but for all industries. But really, I think what's critical here is how technology plays a role, and how technology is kind of now becoming the answer to solve customer service issues and to become more operational efficient, right? But what is the technology to implement, right? And if you're still using Outlook or Gmail, which hasn't really kept up with modern day logistics and supply chain teams, you're not going to be able to achieve your customer service goals. And then one thing I wanted to point out here is what differentiates your company from your competition. And again, another question from the survey. And number one was quality of work, right? And I think this is very important because just like any business, customer service quality is really gonna differentiate you. You could bring customers on one time, but if you don't have high quality work, they're not going to come back. And so by having the right processes in place, you can really impact your revenue, your loyalty, amongst other things. So meet Front, right? And this is really now some of the solutions that I want to talk about based off of these topics that I've covered about inefficiencies with modern day email practices, right? Front is the inbox for logistics teams. I'll go deeper into some of the other teams that we're working with, but really we're trying to solve this problem for logistics and supply chain teams that are dealing with high volume email, that have to coordinate between multiple teams and parties that don't have the visibility into what's being sent out, and really just aren't able to also scale because they're not able to respond fast enough or deal with this high volume mess. So with Front, you can transform your inbox into a powerful platform. You can centralize all of your work communication, right? And so if you're using social like Facebook and Twitter to communicate with customers, if you're using chat, if you're using text messaging. I know a lot of logistics supply chain companies are now starting to use SMS, right? We can integrate with SMS. So you could have your email communication, your SMS, your chat, maybe even your social media communications, all within that same view, and toggle between one and the other very quickly. And so you have this sort of consolidated customer communication platform where you could also communicate internally as well. You could turn every message into an actionable next step, and we'll go deeper into that. You have a shared perspective for handling conversations together as a team. And Front is super flexible, and you can integrate it with all of the apps you need to get your work done. So we integrate with Salesforce, we integrate with Shopify, we integrate with Asana, Jira. We have an open API, so a lot of logistics and supply chain teams have built an integration with their in-house TMS and Front, so that they have their TMS data right there next to their email data and their customer conversations all in one place. So I want to go into some of the features of Front that kind of help combat the issues that I presented earlier on about distribution lists, about high volume email, about the problems that you may be dealing with Outlook or Gmail. So rules. So with Front, you can create automated rules. And so what does that mean, right? So Front can ensure that every message is automatically routed to the right person or the right team. So say you have a VIP customer. In this case, it's FTV Logistics, right? You could create a rule where if a message comes in from FTV Logistics, then assign this message or route this message to Sam. And so if the email's coming into your personal inbox, if the email's coming into a shared inbox or a distribution list that you have set up, instead of every single person receiving that email, you know that this one from FTV should be dealt with by Sam. You could create this rule where just by using the domain of the email address, if email's coming in from @FTV Logistics, or if email's coming in from, you could be very specific, from request @FTV Logistics. Or you could even say if the email's coming in and the subject line says urgent, then route it to Sam. And you could even get even more complex with the rules. You could even then notify Ted, for example, if an urgent request has come. So you can assign it to Sam and notify Ted so that 2 people on your team are aware of this urgent shipment request. If an email hasn't been responded to within 15 minutes, you can move it to a shared inbox that you could label as high priority, that multiple people can have access to, and then you could tag it with an urgent label. So you could create these automatic rules to do just this. So if you have SLAs where you need to respond to a prospect within 15 minutes or a customer within 15 minutes or so, you could create these rules so that people are notified, labels are tagged, and so that you know exactly if something needs to be responded right away. You can automatically tag emails from VIP clients, like I mentioned. You could route requests to the nearest geographical team or account owner. So if you're, for example, I mentioned we're here in SF, we have an office in Paris. When the SF office is sleeping, we automatically route our customer emails to our Paris office. You could do it to an individual as well, so that you can provide 24/7 customer service pretty easily. And then you could even save canned responses for common inquiries like quotes. So if you're getting a lot of inquiries about how much is a quote for this shipment load or whatever it may be, you could set up canned responses. So literally with one click, you can email off your standard response, and so you're not wasting time drafting that same email over and over. Canned responses was exactly the way I sent out this webinar invite reminder email to you folks today. So it's a very quick, efficient tool. At Mention. So this is a really cool tool that I don't think you can really understand until you see it. And so what does this mean, right? With at mention, by at mentioning teammates in Front, you can easily loop in your coworkers about quotes or shipments. without messy BCCs or CCs. So instead of having really long email threads, BCCing and CCing various people and not necessarily knowing who's been looped in and who hasn't, you could comment directly on an email. So that's what's happening in this image right here. So the email is from Ryan Nelson. The subject is urgent delivery. And so what's happening is Brandon is mentioning, so tagging Claire, can you follow up with the carrier, right? And so this is kind of done behind the scenes. This is done actually on the email level. And instead of forwarding it or ceasing Claire and having a really long email chain or a back and forth, you could just have a chat conversation. And so Claire is responding and tagging Brandon on it, right? And then you could see Brandon typing, so you could kind of see this in real time. Claire and Brandon will get notifications that they've been tagged so that they know, someone's trying to chat with them. And this is a really cool way to reduce your email clutter, reduce the CCs and the BCCs and the super long email chains, and just have this conversation and quickly resolve whatever you need to on a particular email. Shared drafts, another really cool feature that will save your team a ton of time and also just a ton of mistakes. With one click, you can get a second pair of eyes or quick approval on critical messages, right? And so say you have a new teammate and you want them to get back to Ryan, right? And so they're not really sure how to respond or what to say, right? So they draft up an email, and then what do? They tap you on the shoulder. Hey, can you review this email? Or they will email you the email, right? Before they email Ryan, they will email it to you, ask you to review it. You maybe can add your comments, you highlight it, or you tag things in red, you email it back, and you go back and forth. That's just a huge waste of time, right? Instead, what you could do is you could create the draft and then you could share it with somebody else, and they could edit it in real time. You could see them edit it, and they could, you could go back and make your comments, and then you could comment on it. You could mention each other. Hey, can you check out this draft now, or what do you think? Give me a thumbs up, and then I'll go ahead and send. And this can save your team a ton of time and also headaches, because maybe your new teammate doesn't want to bug someone or tap somebody on the shoulder, and so they're quick to click send. This makes it super easy, so they don't just have that trigger finger to hit send. Email analytics, really probably the most powerful feature that Front has, right? So you could use Front Analytics to set and meet response time SLAs. You could track the average response time and the average first response time. So if this is a big core part of your business where you need to measure response time, how fast you're getting back to your customers on an individual basis and a team basis, Front has a dashboard that shows you all of this. And it's really awesome, and it really can help you understand how quickly you're getting back to your customers, who's responding faster. Maybe they just don't have as much work, and the person that's responding slower is overwhelmed, right? And so you could also reallocate some of your resources based off of this data. You could also project revenue based on email volume. So some of the companies that we work with in the logistics supply chain industry, depending on the number of email they get, you could kind of correlate it with revenue. And so by having this information on how many inbound messages are coming, you could project your business revenue targets. And it's a really interesting way that some teams have leverage analytics for. Like I mentioned, you can staff to meet business needs. So Front will tell you what's your busiest time of the day, what's your busiest day of the week. And so you could now understand, where do you need to staff more? Perhaps it's Wednesday between 1 and 2 p.m. And then, on Fridays between 3 and 5, it's slow. And so you can allocate staffing based off of this data. And then what's amazing, and, I think one thing I just can't iterate or emphasize enough is how flexible Front is, and you could really create your own custom reports. You could download a CSV of all sorts of data. For example, if you have an urgent tag that you apply when an email hasn't been responded to within 15 minutes, you could see data specifically on that tag. How often is this tag being used, for example? And so various teams are using custom reports in different ways because every business is different. The great thing is you have this data at your fingertips and you can build these reports. This really great quote from Douglas Kurtz from MNX. With Front, we can predict business trends, better prepare for seasonality, and make appropriate plans for team members' vacations. I know we're hitting just the 30-minute mark. We're almost done, so just wanted to let you guys know that this will be done pretty quickly. And then integrations. So like I mentioned, Front has about 50 integrations right now. So the idea at the end of the day is that you don't need your Front inbox. You could really do all of your work within Front. You don't have multiple tabs trying to jump across one application to the next. And like I mentioned, we have this open API, so you could really build your own custom plugins on Front. And like I said, a lot of logistics supply chain teams are using the API to integrate with their in-house TMS, and so that they have all their customer data right there within Front. And then ROI. So once, this is a great quote, once we implemented Front, we saw that we were doing more revenue per person on the customer sales team. Front allows us to get more things done in a smaller amount of time, more accurately per person. So we've calculated this. We're saving team members on average 6 hours per week, and they're responding 54 minutes faster, which is incredible. And we're seeing a 17% increase in daily productivity. And so the ROI, and I think that's why we're getting so much word of mouth traffic, is the ROI is there. By having these really great automations, these workflow enhancements, features like rules, like analytics, you're saving a ton of time. You're able to make better business decisions, and ultimately, you're going to see this on the bottom line, right? This is not just to make things quicker or faster. It's really impacting revenue, right? If you're able to get to a customer, respond faster to a customer, a lot of the companies that we're working with in logistics and supply chain, it doesn't really matter about their product or service. It's really about how quickly they can get back to a prospect. Obviously, they have to have a really great product and service, but a prospect will go to their competitor if they haven't responded to a quote request in time. And so this is very critical. One email has a huge dollar value to it, and so you want to make sure that you're getting back to people in time. And so customers, just wanted to show some of the customers we're working with. So this is, generally speaking, we work with tons of customers, over 5,000. I think we're at 5,500 right now. Some of the bigger names here: Shopify, Lyft, Stripe, HubSpot, Dropbox, Altor, Convoy, Cisco. And then here are some of the tech-forward logistics and supply chain companies that are scaling their operations with Front. So as I mentioned, Convoy, there's Sendify, FretLink, Flexport, Transfix, Sagasu, just countless other ones that every day are really just finding our tool very valuable for some of the reasons that I mentioned. Here's some case study. I won't bore you with the deep nitty-gritty of this, but here's kind of some of the ways MNX, one of our customers, was able to go from Outlook, where they couldn't quickly triage messages, where they couldn't assign messages to specific team members, and now with Front, they are able to do that. They are able to have that visibility and therefore get back to their customers faster. FretLink, another customer, they were using Zendesk, Slack, and email, and this sort of combination between the three tools. And now with Front, the bolded part of this quote, now with Front, even if I wasn't on the original email thread, I can find exactly what I need in seconds. And I think that's the key, is just being able to find what you need, even if you aren't necessarily looped in or part of that conversation. If it's part of a shared inbox, you'll be able to surface it. FreightWorks, it was impossible to know if someone handled it or not if they didn't reply at all. Quite frankly, it was a mess. And with Front, the customer has a single point of contact. But on our side, we know exactly who is working on what and when it's done. Again, that visibility, accountability aspect of Front, I think, saves a lot of time and headaches. That's it. Thank you so much. I hope that was informative. I hope that was valuable. If you have any questions, feel free to just ask them away. You can also email me. My email is vishal@frontapp.com. That's V as in Victor, ISHAL @frontapp.com. You probably got an email from me earlier today about the webinars, and you'll get another one with the recording and the presentation. And so I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks so much for taking the time today to be with us. And again, let me know if you have any questions. Cheers.